Hey guys, welcome to Bar Z. My name's Stan, and today we've got a little project we're starting, and these are adjustable parallels. Now these are a cheap Chinese set because I'm going to modify them, and I don't really care about them, and I don't want to do it to an expensive set because I still don't know this is going to work. But I found some deficiencies in the Chinese set. First of all, these horrible little screws, Chinese screws, strip out in the blink of an eye. They're Phillips. They're just barely Phillips. And what I did to these two are modified. You can see I put some button head Allens in there. Maybe I'll zoom in on that. Or not button head, countersunk Allens. And everything sits subsurface. So everything stays smooth. It's just a matter of taking these things and taking a carbide countersink and running it down the hole and getting the right depth and then buying the right screws. And after you do that, everything will work just fine. And the trouble I was having is, see, these things are locked up here. And with an Allen wrench, it's just a matter of just barely cracking them loose. I mean, it's not like doing anything with a Phillips. Now, I've cleaned them and kind of give them a little lapping. There's a little bit of lapping involved in cleaning them up. You know what? But for 40 bucks, what do I expect? They're hard as all get out. So they're not going to machine with high-speed steel. So make sure you use a carbide countersink to do those holes. So this is step one: is just get them working, get them smooth. These are really rough, full of crap. Take them apart, clean them, lap them, countersink them, change the hardware, and then we can get on to the main video. Now what's funny is I bought an inexpensive set of Brown and Sharps on eBay, and I was going to clean them up and oil them and do the same thing to them, but after I cleaned them up, they were so nice I couldn't bring myself to modify them, because after I do what I'm getting ready to do, there's no going back. And like I say, I don't know if it's going to work, but I don't see why it wouldn't. Okay, well, we got all the screws changed out in our parallels, and I don't think any of these are going to give us any problems. But now I can tell you what I'm going to do with them. Quite often people struggle with measuring bores and IDs of things. And there used to be a Starrett set where when you look at them knife edge, they had a radius on each end, and it was for measuring inside diameters. What you'd do is you'd hang it into a bore, put it like halfway into the bore, close up the parallel, get it nice and tight inside the bore, and then come on the outside and measure what's hanging out with a pair of micrometers. So a pretty accurate way to do it. And you can take that parallel after you've tightened your screws, and you can move it around inside the bore and feel if it's oval or, and you're catching all the high spots on it. So you're getting a pretty accurate measurement. So that's what I'm going to do with these, and I think none of these are going to give me any problems until I get down. This one's going to be okay. This one here, to cut a radius on that knife edge right there, I'm going to be getting real close to that screw, which I'm not that concerned with if I get into that screw hole a little bit and do the radius, but I might have to take the screw head itself and cut it down. And possibly on that one, this little guy for sure. That is, even the countersunk broke out on the edge there a little bit. So that screw's not sitting proud right now. But after I cut a radius in that thing, because you got to have a radius on both sides, and even here, it's probably going to, because the smallest one is going to get the tightest radius. This one will go all the way down to 1/2 inch, so I have to cut a 1/4 inch radius on that. So this thing's 1/4 inch thick, I believe. We'll measure them, and we're going to pick a wheel as close to the width of this as we can. And after we get it in position, the wheel can stay in position after we get it centered on the surface grinder, because we're just going to be making passes and down feeds. We don't have to do any step overs. So So we're just going to plunge into these things and cut a radius on both edges. All that matters is we keep them parallel, you know, and this is actually a pretty easy little project. And like I said before, I bought a set of Brown and Sharps, de-rusted them, oiled them, and put them together. I just couldn't bring myself to grind them until I know this stunt's going to work. So I got a set of Chi-Coms, and I had to change the fasteners to even make them work at all. And you got to take them apart and wire little brass wire brush and get down in the grooves and clean all the crap out of them, because they literally put them together, put the screws in it, grind it, put it in a box, and ship it. After it's ground, they don't come back apart to get cleaned, or oiled for that matter. They're dry as a bone and full of grit and a bunch of nasty crap. But I got them all working, and what we're going to do now, we're going to set up this guy. That's my radius and tangent dresser. So we have to set up a different radius for every single one. Notice I got a diamond out of it. So no diamond here. And I'm going to show you how to set up for radii. I'm going to show you how to set up for a 0 diamond and then start doing offsets. Okay, first thing you need to do is make sure that your radius and tangent dresser is in good shape. Make sure all axes move. Make sure everything's oiled and cleaned. That's your radius portion of it. This is your tangent portion of it. Another thing you need to make sure of is that your carriage can move. This is a Gibbs screw I'm undoing right here. And this is basically a shot pin for movement up and movement down on that way. And with it in between, when the pin's on both of them, 0 play. That's why one's got a cam on it. So this is to set a 0 diamond, and that's what we're going to do right now. We're going to turn it to 90 degrees very carefully, and we're going to set our veneer to 90. And we've got a protractor over here. Now here's our diamond. It's just a little 3/8 guy. Let me move this in the camera a little bit. All right, so you got a little 3/8 diamond, but we're not going to use that to tram it in. We're going to come in here with a 3/8 gauge pin. Hopefully that fits. Oh yeah. Okay, we're just going to put that in sideways right there. And then we're going to release these 2 screws here. We're going to go ahead and tighten our Gibbs screw right for now. Put this at 90. Okay. And now what we're going to do is we're going to fuss this around till we get a 0-0 reading with a height gauge across there. That's going to start us off with a diamond that's facing straight up. This is the very first step. Okay, I thought I'd show you indicating this in real quick. This is no big deal. It's a little time consuming. So this one's showing high. Watch out, here comes a sledgehammer. Okay, 1.5 thou. I'll tell you, I took out half the air. Oh shit, within 1/10. Okay, we'll call that. Tighten your set screws here and call it a day. Okay, we got our pin in, and we're going to switch that out to a diamond. So we're going to yank the pin out for now. The next tool you're going to need is a center gauge, and it can be shop made, whatever. What you need to know is the height of your center line of your radius and tangent dresser. Mine is 3.400, and I already know that because I already measured it. So it's I'm ready to go. And to make your life easy, so you don't have to build gauge block stacks, just build yourself a little tool for that. So I've got a tool just for my height. So we're going to spin around a 180, and basically we're going to face that diamond down. So set your caliper to 180. Set your protractor to 180. Put this in frame of the camera. Bring your tool in and drop your diamond in and get it over my tool. Can you see that? Yes, you can. And we'll go ahead and push that diamond down right into the that tool block. Not recommended to use gauge blocks for this, otherwise you'll be pushing a diamond right into your nice gauge blocks. So use something expendable. All right, and that takes care of that. Now you've got a diamond at 0. And when I say 0, I'm going to tip this up and get it off of there so I don't scratch my. You might be able to see that on the middle of that, all the dents from diamonds getting punched into that thing. So you got to polish that thing constantly. The diamond will always put a dent in that. Even though I hardened it, that's a piece of hardened 01 tool steel. That diamond just doesn't care. Now when I say 0, let's point you down the barrel of this thing. And if I hover something right here, that diamond is hovering around 0. So the tip of that diamond has 0 speed, nothing, 0. So at this point now, we can make an offset using our pin that I warned you about earlier. So let's get a gauge block stack and do our first one. We know that our first one is a 1/2 inch diameter, so we want to cut a 1/4 inch radius on that. So let's get a 1/4 inch gauge block stack set up, and I'll show you how to do an offset on this. Okay, next up we got a 250 gauge stack, and I'm going to show you how to use it. I've already released the center screw right here, which releases the gib in that center dovetail, so I can raise and lower this now against my center, because my center is running here. So if I raise or lower, we're going to be either cutting a convex or a concave. We want a concave wheel. So if I slide this way and go up, I'm cutting a concave wheel. If I slide this way and go down, I'm cutting a convex wheel. That's why I told you to make sure you got 0 clearance in here. You don't know which way you're doing your gauge stack. So we want a concave wheel. So we're going to slide our pin this way. We're going to put our gauge stack right over here. And you know the 0 that I showed you to 0 out the diamond, you only have to do that once. I was just showing you how to set it vertical and get it on 0. After it's zeroed out, you set your pins, make sure this is 0 clearance. You can always find 0 again without having to measure, without having to use your center tool and go through all that trouble. The only time you have to do that is when you change out your diamond, or God forbid you release that screw or those screws. All right, so we got our gauge block stack in there, and we're happy. We're down tight to it, and now we're just going to tighten our gib. And remove all our stuff, get our gauge block stack out of there. Actually, for the cut, we'll probably pull the pin out too, get that out of there, and we're ready to go dress a wheel. And you see now we're above center line, so we're cutting in an arc at 250. All right. So we're going to go pick a wheel that's as close to the same width as our pieces we're making, and get right on center of that thing and dress it up. And as we progress through the tools, we got to do a different radius on every single tool. We'll have to come back to the gauge block stack, but we can do that on the fly. We don't even need to do it on the surface plate. Just throw a pin in, make your new gauge block stack, send it up, and we're going to keep progressing higher and higher as we go. Okay, I'm centered up on the wheel, and the way I did it is I measured the width of the wheel with a pair of dial calipers. I couldn't find a 1/4 inch wheel. I had to go to a 1/2 inch wide wheel. So we're only going to be taking about a 1/4 inch out of the center. We don't need to take any more out of the wheel than we have to. So I measured the width of the wheel. I came up on it with a diamond, just did a visual just till I heard the diamond just start touching, and just like I'm doing a flat dress. And then I set the hand wheel on my my cross feed, my step over feed, and then I went 1/2 of the wheel, so 250 thousandths. So my diamond's in the center of the wheel. I'm on center line this way, and now you can see every time I move, I'm moving actually away from the wheel. All right, so just do down feeds. I got to do 250 thousandths worth of down feeds to get a full form, and then we're ready to go. Okay, all I need to do now is check the width of my cut and make sure it's wider than the tool. So I need to go get a pair of calipers and measure how much I've taken out of this wheel widthwise, and see if it matches what it's equal to or greater than the tool we're grinding. Okay, I'm just doing a rough measurement to make sure I'm going to make it on the tool. Looks like we're doing good. I'm about 300 thousandths wide, and the tools we're cutting are like they're 7 millimeter tools, so they're a little bit over a 1/4 inch. They're 270 thousandths. So we've got a 300 thousandths concave surface cut in there, so no problem. We're ready to grind our first tool. Okay, I couldn't really get you in there when I was doing it, but because this cover was down, I'll give you an idea what it was going to look like. It was just all this was in the way. You'd be looking at the back of a Noga the whole time with coolant flying everywhere. I was trying to keep my camera from getting messed up. Anyways, there's the wheel. I'll tip you up just a skosh. You can see the 1/4 inch radius in there. You can see our parts here with a 1/4 inch radius in them. We've already done both sides. And I just used a parallel, very small parallel in the vise to get them paralleled up. We'll go check them to make sure we didn't lose parallelism. But if we did, they're easy to fix. That's all we got to worry about is parallelism. We don't care what size they are. But now that we got the first one done, this is the one with that little screw in it. Let me get this out of the vise, and I'm going to go show it to you over on the bench, and we'll give it a test. We'll see how it fares measuring a hole. Okay, so what we got here is a piece of heavy wall tubing that's been reamed. I reamed it a long time ago. It was a clearance hole for a 1/2-inch bolt, drilled and reamed, and I can't remember what we clearanced it to. It was 500 thousandths and change. It wasn't much clearance. I wanted a tight fit, but I'm going to show you my freshly ground little mini parallel. And you see I did in fact get into the bolt. You can see the little flat spot on the bolt, so I need to keep that screw out of the bore because it'll interfere. And here's a profile of it. You can see our radius. You see how close I got to that dovetail, really close. And same here, got really close to the dovetail. But we're going to slip it in the bore as so. And then we're going to expand it. I'll get down as deep as I can here, try to get a feel for that hole. I ran a bottle brush through that hole just to clean it out, just get all the crap out of it. I actually use that over on the welding table, but interior is devoid of any little welding berries and stuff like that. Okay, so we're just going to hold that and pinch it tight. Tighten our screw. I didn't get it tight, it backed off. Let's do it again. Let's try that one more time. Kind of wedge that little monkey in there. And tighten. And see now so now you got a feel for the hole, and you can move it around and feel the hole. See if you're elongated or anything funny. But let's measure it. I'm coming in at 504 2/10. Yep. $504.20. So yeah, it's 4 thousandths over. I knew it was an oversized hole. It was reamed. Let's check it against something else that we like, which is a ball gauge. This is as big as my ball gauges go. My ball gauges go to 1/2 inch. This is the biggest one I own. If you don't have a set of these are pretty neat. You can see when I'm turning this mandrel, you're expanding that ball, and you can move it in and out of the hole, up and down, side to side, and get a good feel for the hole, and get a pretty good feel. And you can actually put a little tension on it and fish around inside that hole a little bit. All right, so I think that feels pretty good. Let's measure that. Whoa. Okay, that one came in at 50. It's chattering around. 5044. 5043. It's blinking back and forth. It can't make up its mind. So I'm within 1/10 of my other measurement. Yeah. I'm within 1/10 of the measurement I got with this little guy. So the feel is good. And this is set now. You can take this over to another machine and use it as a reference or whatever, and maybe use it for spot checking parts or something like that. But the only downside to it is you got to leave that screw hanging out of the bore so you can tighten it. You can't send it all the way home because you won't have any way to tighten it up. Maybe on the larger ones you can, but not on the little ones. All right, so is this going to work? Yes, I believe it is. I honestly think this is going to work, and this is a good way to measure bores. You know, the other ways with snap gauges. Everybody struggles with snap gauges. But I thought I'd show you my idea of making some bore measuring tools out of some adjustable parallels. This is the very smallest one. I'm going to work my way up to the biggest one. And maybe I'll bring you back for the finale and show you, maybe we'll measure a big hole instead of this little half-inch bore. We'll measure something a little larger and see how we do. All right? Okay, well, we've cut and tested our radius there. And I'll show you that we do in fact have, there's a 1/4 inch radius, so 250, half-inch diameter. We've tested this one, but then I thought, you know what, let's take it down and to its minimum size. You know, we can go below that. And if I do go below that, then the radius is not going to be accurate. So the minimum size, I've got it hyperextended all the way out, and my measurement right now is 400 thousandths. So I'd be better off starting off with this little one with a 200 thousandths radius. So we're going to change our radius and tangent dresser over to a smaller radius. See if I'm still in frame there. Yeah, we'll turn you guys a little bit. And what we'll do is we'll put the pen back in. Nothing like switching boats midstream, right? Here, let me lock that protractor. Okay, we're going to drop that in, so if our dovetail falls, it's at least got something to fall against. Okay, we've unlocked our gib, and that puts us back down there. And we're going to change out our gauge block stack from 250 to 200. And let's bring these together. And we're going to recut that wheel. You guys, I'm not going to keep showing you me cutting that wheel. You guys get the idea. But now we're going to come in here and drop 200 thousandths in there. And tighten up our gib. Okay. And now that's, you can see that. There's the setup right there for doing that. All right. And these are pretty tight to get out, but they're all precision surfaces. You know, that little peg coming out is a precision ground peg, and this little bolt-in piece, that's precision ground too. And pull that out so it didn't fall out. That's set up for 200 thousandths radius, 400 thousandths diameter. Okay, well, we're done with our 20,000 or 200 thousandths radius. And now all that's left is to measure them. Now these, I mean, you could mic them, and I will warn you that the ones with the slots in them, that slot lands right in the center, and if you measure on that slot, you're going to get a bad reading. So you got to measure out on the flats. All right. So only the two smallest ones have a slit in them. Oh no, the three smallest ones have a slit in them. When they get into the bigger ones, they don't have that. So, and the sterrets have that too. The sterrets have a little groove in them, but as long as you don't measure there, I think you'll be fine. And I've been procrastinating, but cutting down that screw, I still haven't done it. I'll get around to it. That'll affect your reading too. Just don't let that screw go into the bore. But that's the grind, and it was a pretty close one there. Came right out to the edge of that dovetail. The smallest one is the hardest one. The rest are going to be, I'm not going to say easy, but how do we measure it? Now, I guess you could just take a micrometer and do it, but doing it on the comparator stand, you know, they don't stand up anymore. Before you grind them, yeah, they stand up fine. But now we got parallels that don't. They're just They're just weebles wobble, and they do fall down. All right, so all we're going to do is take a couple of 1, 2, 3 blocks and pinch it in between, as so, and pass it across on the comparator stand, flip, and oops, flip, and then pass it across on the comparator stand. So that's how we're going to measure those. That'll keep them vertical, and we'll get a nice high reading when we pass across that little flat spot. So let's go see how we did. Okay, I got you set up, and I got a rough adjustment on it for right now. And we're just going to push across, see where we're at. That's my highest high. We just want to zero it out on the peak. And pass it across a couple more times, make sure we repeat. Yep. And then we're just going to take this little guy and flip it around. And if I get it within a couple tenths, I'll be happy. And keep light pressure on your 1, 2, 3 blocks, because we're relying on the spring pressure of the gauge to push it down tight to the plate. Alright, well that's my highest high, and I'm looking at about, it's about a tenth. It's a little under a tenth. I'm good with that. That's about as good as a set of parallels is going to get. I mean, I could sit there splitting hairs, but I don't think we need to. But before we continue, we're going to do one last check over at our little bore. I think we're coming in at 504 something yesterday. That was yesterday. I've slept since then. But let's go try this little fellow over there. Then maybe I'll finally get around to cutting that screw down so it doesn't interfere with the flank of that thing. All right, let's go try it. Okay, so I broke down and finally, focus, there it is, and finally dressed up that screw and got it so it's all subsurface here. I just had to make a little man roll. Those are 448 screws, and trim that head down a little bit. So this gives me, I've already set it, but now that bolt can go down in the bore and clear. See, now we don't care if we put the bolt in the bore, but you can't tighten it. So you have to come out here, get it all set, tighten your little set screw, and then you can run it down and fish around in the bore and feel what it's like. Okay, so I've got a really good feel for that there. It slides around. It feels nice. And if we remember, we were 504 and change, something like that. See where we're at here. $5042, 5040, 5040. Yep. And it matters, you have to measure parallel. If you get it cocked off this way or this way, you're going to get a bad measurement. You got to keep that parallel with your jaws of your micrometer. Alrighty. So I'd call that a success. I mean, I'm going to use these. I'll be happy with them. So that's got a super feel inside that hole. And you can feel around for tight spots and things like that. If you're doing a bearing fit or something, that might be awfully handy to have. At this point, now I'm really happy with it, and I can continue with the set. I don't know whether I'm going to be happy with the set because there's still the Chi-Com little parallels. I might be sorry I didn't put all this time into those Brown and Sharps that I bought. But I guess I'll go ahead and push forward on my Chinesium ones, and we'll go from there. There's my finish. That's what it looks like. All right. So let me go finish those up, and we'll bring you back for a final recap on the whole set. This is the one that me and Phil, after the bash, we had a jig grinding head with a CBN stone, and we just ran an annular cutter through it, and then we came back with that little jig boring head, and it was pretty cool. I think we made a really nice round hole. It's as round as your spindle bearings on your milling machine will allow, but we're going to use that to measure with our little piece here. Let me get you zoomed out. You're zoomed in way too far. Okay, well, we're going to take our we got our Allen wrench pre-installed. We're going to go inside the bore here, and we're going to go maybe up to that first Allen wrench, or the first Allen bolt, and I'm going to slightly turn it rotationally and keep pressure on those two segments of parallel. Fishing around, we can actually go 90 degrees, see what the hole feels like. It feels really even all the way around. You've never seen two grown men so happy about a hole in a piece of steel. Me and Phil were sitting there with that jig grinder, just giddy. It was, and after we bored it and ground it, we're like, hey man, we got a way to measure that. We can use a snap gauge, but I don't think a snap gauge really tells you anything. You're only measuring at 2 pinpoints across a bore. This, you can stick it in there, fish around, and feel for the quality of the hole. Anyways, we've got that one set. We're going to measure it, and let me put a snap gauge in there. Let me collapse it, and we'll come in here, snap it open, make sure it's centered, put it slightly off camber there, tighten, and just give it one, let it cam over. All right, so that's how you set those. That's at the minimum threshold of that guy. Those things extended very little. All right, let's measure them both and see how they compare. Okay, we've got both gauges that have been set to the hole, and we're going to use the same tool to measure them so that we can do it comparatively and see if we come up with the same number. Let's measure ours first. I'm seeing 1.280, almost on the dot. And this is kind of nice. It's self-squaring because you're working on a line. You're working on a line down the high spot. So it's kind of nice for getting your measurements. Yep. Yep, there's your 1.280. Then this one you're measuring across 2 pinpoints. So measuring a snap gauge is a little trickier. As you measure, I'll accentuate it. But if you measure this way over here, tip it, you'll get a low reading. So you got to keep these things really square, and just a real light touch. And that's 1.280. I'm seeing 6/10. Yep. 1.280, and there's the smallest one, 1.280 and 5. 1.280 and 5/10. And this one was, what was this one? 1.280 and 1/10 or something. Oop, I'm crooked. There it is. Wow, it's pretty much spot on. 1.280 and 5. So are they accurate? Yeah. And I'm measuring exactly where this is the bolt that was in the hole. So I'm measuring right there. But I've got them real parallel. I got them parallel within 1/10. Now that's not to say that they're going to stay parallel throughout the working range. You know, this is an unknown cut, the dovetail, all that. Don't know how straight it is. If it's totally straight, then yes, they'll stay parallel throughout the working range. And that's why that was the main reason I wanted to make them out of something quality. You know, if this is successful, maybe I'll get me a set of Starretts or Brown and Sharps and grind them up. But I wasn't prepared to do that until I knew this was going to work. All right. But I got 2 more to grind. Let's go get those ground up. I'll show you all the radii when I'm done, and then we'll recap the whole thing. All right. Okay, well, I think I got you framed in the shot pretty good. We're getting rid of our analog, and we got the electronic in there. I got this at the bash. Just let me move that over a little bit. Kind of aim it at you. Maybe you can see a little better. Okay. Got it for videos, got it for myself. I got the amplifier from our friend Tom Lipton, and then I bought a new old stock Tessa plunger type indicator. I guess you'd call that an indicator. The Tessas are compatible with the Brown and Sharps. So I got my cord all worked out. I got it set on the lowest resolution right now. Got it all set up, and I already showed you how I measure these things for parallelism, and I made a correction on these, but we're going to come up and zero up here. It should be pretty close to 0 already. We're just gonna. It's so weird not looking at a gauge. You're just looking somewhere else. All right, so we're going to go there. Can you see that gauge? You can see that gauge. Right there, and then we can zero up here without even touching the part, which is nice, because every time you touch the part, it'll bump and move around, because everything moves. Everything's made out of rubber, as Mr. Renzetti says. Okay, so we'll make another sweep across there, find our highest high. Okay, so we're calling that 0. Now we're going to take our parallel and just end-for-end it. And I'm just using a couple of 1, 2, 3 blocks to keep this vertical. Because otherwise you'd have all kinds of problems. These parallels don't stand up by themselves anymore. Weebles wobble and they absolutely fall down. So let's see what our travel looks like again. Okay, well that's kind of beyond my measuring capabilities there. Oh wait, no it's not. With the flip of a switch we can make this look terrible. So we can switch to middle here, or even this one. I'll tell you what this last switch position does. It turns 0 to 3/1000 into 0 to 3/10. My God. Let's make this will make this thing look terrible. You know, a microscope can make anything you make or build look frickin' awful. I don't know whether it shares a 0 when you flip that switch. No, I don't think it does. Let's find our highest high. Right there. And see if we can zero up on that. Whoa, it's really sensitive now. You guys hold your breath. You know, you guys could probably make that needle move from sitting at your desk watching this on a PC. All right. So I should sweep across 0 there, and I'm not. Oh, there it is. As long as we're splitting hairs, let's split them. All right, we're going to pull off gently and flip. And this is probably beyond what they need to be, but it's still fun to play with it. All right, so it's low. That's a tenth. The first one is a tenth of a thousandth. So I am 1, 2, is that 20 millionths? I guess I'm 20 millionths off. Close enough for the girls I go out with. All right, I just thought it'd be fun to play with the amplifier a little bit and show you that you can make anything look terrible. Okay, well, we finished all of our parallels, and I was going to show you all the radius and diameters of everything we did. 200 thousandths radius. These are all radiuses here, and these are all diameters here. So 200 thousandths, 250 thousandths, 350 thousandths, 450 thousandths, 500 thousandths, and 750. Now, I picked the lower limit on each individual parallel so that the radius wouldn't get in the way of measuring the smaller bores. So I'm gonna keep these and play with them for a little while, and actually measure some things and just put them to work. And if I hate them, they're going in the bin. If I love them, maybe I'll make me a set of take a set of Starretts and carve them up, or a set of Brown and Sharps or something nice, Lufkins maybe, and go ahead and grind them up. But I'm pleased with the results. I've tested this one, and the biggest one, and they all work satisfactorily. Repeatable readings, and they're still a little fussy. You know, they're fussy like a kind of like a snap gauge, you know. But the only difference between a snap gauge and these is you can go into a hole and fish around and feel for other things inside the hole, whether it's big or small or oval or something like that, because it's working on 2 lines of contact and not just 2 pinpoints of contact. Okay, so all that's left is to put our radius and tangent dresser back to 0. So we got a fresh starting place. We're going to put our pin back in, release our gib, and it's as easy as this. It's going to go right back to 0. And we're going to release our gib right here, push down to the pin engages, and shove the pin over on this side and this side. And now we know we're back to a 0 diamond. Tighten our gib, and I'm going to go blow it down with an air hose, get all the grinding dust off of it, and then I'm going to spray it down with 336 by CRC and put it back in the box. All right. I appreciate you guys watching. This video is probably a little long. You know, I shot this over 3 days just as time allowed, but it's a fun project for you. You know, maybe we'll follow up in a month or 2 after we've used these and let you know if it's worth it or not. You know, I knew of the existence of these bore parallels. Super hard to find. Just thought I'd make my own. All right. You guys, thanks for watching. I really appreciate all you guys that stuck with me through this entire video, and we'll catch you on the next one.